All right, welcome to the Jim Acosta Show, and it's another day that ends in Y and Donald Trump's assault on democracy in America. I want to bring in my friend Maria Cardona, and she's a Democratic strategist, and I'm sure you heard a little bit of what I was talking about with David Hogg there just a few moments ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder what you think. What do you think about what he's been trying to do? I know it's made some people inside the Democratic Party a little nervous. They don't like the idea of having somebody like David out there, running after incumbents, running challengers to incumbents, and so on. Your thoughts on that? We'll get into everything else. All the other
Sure.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, as you may know, Jim, I am a DNC member and a member of the Rules and Bylaws Committee, and so I was involved in all of this. And look, I know David, and I'm a huge fan of his, and always have been from the moment that he became an activist, from the tragedy that he and his fellow students suffered when he was in school, when he was just a baby. And so I think that he is coming at this with the right passion, with the right intentions. We do need to bring in new blood. We do need to bring in younger people. We have seen this across the board for the Democratic Party. We have to inject in fresh ideas, fresh faces, ways to come at what the Democratic Party has suffered from, new angles, new perspectives. So I do admire that is his core mission. When he was at the DNC, I do think, and he said this at the very end, he had a decision to make whether to continue as a vice chair, where you can't really go against Democrats. It's, just part of being part of the Democratic National Committee, or focus on what he wants to focus on. And I think he made the right decision, because that really then allows him, untethered, to do what he thinks we need to do. And he has a lot of admirers within the party, including the chairman, who hopes that he continues to do that and hopes to continue to work with him hand in hand to make sure that the Democratic Party is speaking to exactly those concerns that young people across the board, not just in the Democratic Party, are feeling each and every single day, that certainly Trump and Republicans have no idea how to approach with real solutions. And we need to prove that we are the party that can do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into this ICE stuff. And Maria, I'm so glad that I have you on here to talk about this stuff. I was watching the headlines all weekend long, I mean, it doesn't feel like we live in the United States of America that you and I grew up in, Maria, when I look at what's happening right now. But just to catch people up with what's happening, officials in Oregon and Illinois are stepping up their efforts to block what they denounced as Trump's invasion of their cities. This is the New York Times writing this, with National Guard troops fighting legal battles. Illinois officials sued Trump just today, hours after he ordered hundreds of Texas National Guard soldiers to deploy for what he calls federal protection missions in Chicago and Portland, Oregon. And I want to show Maria, the viewers, some of what we're talking about. We have some video, I think, of some tear gas being deployed in a neighborhood. We also have video of a Chicago alderperson. I'll show that in a second. Look at this. Tear gas. Maria, can you imagine living in a neighborhood and they're deploying tear gas in your effing neighborhood? My God.
No, Jim, I can't. And I got to tell you, I'm so happy that we are talking about this, Jim, because everyone needs to understand what's going on here. I really believe that we are at a crossroads in our country, Jim. I was talking to my father over the weekend, and he was in tears talking to me, Jim. And I'm welling up right now, because he said, Mija, this is not the country that I brought our family to.
Right.
I do not recognize what is going on in these cities with these images.
Right.
And, across the board, and, you and I talk to people all the time, from the folks who are experiencing all of these horrific acts in these cities, to the people who are watching from afar. And you're talking Democrats, independents, even common sense Republicans who are saying, no, this is not what we voted for. This is not what America looks at and says, yes, that represents what I want. That represents our values. Absolutely not, Jim.
Yeah, and Maria, let's look at this video right here. Look at this. This was an alderperson, Jesse Fuentes in Chicago. She's at the hospital last Friday. Look at this. The Chicago alderperson.
Can somebody go in the hallway
on
and
the
get
Chicago
for me,
City
please?
Council.
Unbelievable.
Can somebody go in the hallway and get?
She's asking the ICE agents, do you guys have a warrant to be here in the hospital?
Yeah.
And they're just going into hospitals, grabbing people, going into, there was a South Shore neighborhood apartment building that they were assaulting was it a week ago Tuesday? Right. It looked like a military operation where they were rappelling down the side of the building and zip tying old people and little kids and all this. And then here they are arresting an alderperson on Friday. This is yet another Democratic politician getting arrested by ICE.
It is
unreal.
Seriously, there are no words to describe what is going on here, and the danger and the concern and the urgency that we all should be feeling as this is happening. Because let's be very clear, this is not about public safety. This is not about fighting crime. This is about pushing the envelope from Trump and his administration to see how much power they can accumulate, how much force they can use against American citizens who they believe oppose them. And this is, again, not about fighting crime in these U.S. cities. This is about creating the chaos. This is about creating those dangerous situations so then they can use it as an excuse to ultimately bring in the military.
Well, and Maria, the other thing they're doing is they're creating these propaganda videos that are brainwashing people. Look at this. Kristi Noem tweeted this out over the weekend. It looks like something out of a goddamn movie.
Oh my God.
And these are militarized police officers. These are police officers, ICE officers, so on, in military uniforms, with guns, with military gear. I saw this movie, One Battle After Another, over the weekend with Leonardo DiCaprio and Sean Penn. It looks like a scene out of that movie, where it's basically about this stuff, where they're a militarized police force is going after protesters, migrants, and so on. This is what the Secretary of Homeland Security tweeted out, and her caption is, "Chicago, we're here for you."
Oh my God, that is so disgusting and so shameful that this is happening within our borders. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is treating U.S. citizens as if they were terrorists like Osama bin Laden. That image that you just showed looked like a scene from Zero Dark 30.
Right, exactly.
It is not just insane, but it is unacceptable. Americans have to see this and have to say, we are in danger, because we are. Not from outside forces, not from Al-Qaeda or ISIS, but from our own freaking president of the United States and this administration, who is looking to accumulate as much power as they can. They've already been handed the imperial presidency by the Supreme Court, which has made him feel completely invincible. And we all need to keep watch on this, Jim.
Yeah.
It's infuriating.
Well, and just over the weekend, there was a Trump-appointed judge who came out and said that you can't deploy the National Guard into Oregon.
Thank goodness.
And she said you can't take control of their National Guard. She says this is a nation of constitutional law, not martial law. That's a quote unquote quote from the judge, adding that Trump's orders, quote, risk blurring the line between civil and military federal power to the detriment of this nation. But then, I don't know if you saw this, Maria, but Stephen Miller, Trump's henchman when it comes to migrants in this country, he tweeted out that this was legal insurrection. This is how he responded to the judge's ruling in this. He called it legal insurrection. He says the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, not an Oregon judge. I mean, this is how a top level official inside the White House replies to something like this, responds to something like this. It's totally outrageous. And I think we just need to say it. Yeah. Stephen Miller is a pendejo.
He's absolutely
he's a pendejo. That's
a pendejo, and an hijo de puta as well.
He's an asshole. He's just he is.
And he's dangerous, and the things that he says are dangerous. to this country. Because if you combine what is going on with ICE in these cities, and let's be very clear, they are going after Black people, they are going after brown people. They don't care what kind of status we have in this country. That is who they are going after. They're going after us, and then they are asking questions later. And as you have seen, and you have reported this, they're detaining U.S. citizens.
Yep.
They don't care. They don't give a shit. As long as the people they are detaining look dangerous, right? And for them, the people who look dangerous have Black and brown skin, may speak with an accent, may not look like, Stephen Miller looks or Donald Trump looks or whatever they think, right? And this is why I'm saying we are at a crossroads, Jim, and everyone needs to understand where we are headed and what this president is actually trying to do. He is attacking U.S. cities. He is attacking U.S. citizens. This has nothing to do with keeping neighborhoods safe, has nothing to do with even getting rid of the most violent criminal aliens, as he says it, right? Because he is traumatizing children. He is, like you just showed, they are detaining alder people, elected officials, Senator Padilla. They threw him down on the floor. They threw down on the floor an innocent woman who was just screaming to say that she wanted information about her husband who had been detained. They are traumatizing kids, separating kids from their parents. This is god awful what is happening. And the only sort of thing that gives me hope is that the polls are tanking because Americans are seeing this and they're saying that is not who we are. That is not what we voted for. Yeah. That is not what we want in our streets.
And I will tell you, I mean, these ICE officers wearing these masks, if what you're doing is something to be proud of, you don't wear the mask.
Exactly.
If what you're doing is morally defensible, you don't wear the mask. If what you're doing is legal and right and just, you don't wear the mask. They wear masks.
That's exactly.
It looks like something out of Putin's Russia. It's totally insane. And it's menacing. And I don't know how we're supposed to feel safe in our communities if they can just roll up in an unmarked vehicle with masks on and abduct you. It's not America. I'm sorry.
Correct. That is such a good point, Jim, because again, they do this under the guise of keeping Americans safe.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who feels safer with this going on in their neighborhoods.
Who feels safe, right?
Exactly. And you know what else? You brought up a really good point. Who are these ICE agents, Jim?
Yeah.
You know that they are working with a $50,000 bonus, right? How do we know that these people aren't criminals themselves? How do we know that they underwent a background check, which is supposed to be very rigorous and strenuous? How do we know that they have the training, which is supposed to be very rigorous and strenuous, to become an ICE agent? None of them did that. None of them had that.
And
they came in and they said, do you want to hunt immigrants? Yes, I would love to. Here's a gun.
I think they're just hiring the true believers. And National Public Radio, I was sharing this story with my viewers a couple of weeks ago. They did a story where they went to an ICE fair and they found, a hiring event for ICE. And the people who showed up said, "Oh, I love Trump. I believe in what he's doing." And they're hiring the true believers. Those are the people who are showing up to get these positions. And so they align with him politically. That's not how law enforcement is supposed to work. And when he goes to the nation's generals and he's talking about going after the enemy from within, when he's spreading lies like he was yesterday with the members of the Navy, he was talking about undocumented immigrants. He was saying illegal aliens they want federal benefits, and that's why Democrats are shutting down. I mean, it's all lies and bullshit. But he is laying the kindling, to me, for real violence in this country. And it is some sick and twisted shit. And he has a pendejo and Stephen Miller whispering in his ear like a Lord of the Rings villain. You know what I mean? Remember the character that whispered in the king's ear and
oh my God, they even look like
shriveled up or whatever. I mean, that's what this is like. I can't remember what the name of that character was, but that's what this is like. It's totally nuts.
That is exactly right. And you connected two very important threads, Jim. Two very terrifying threads, which is what Donald Trump says he's doing with ICE, and what he said to the generals, that we are fighting the enemy from within. He is creating the chaos. He is creating the violent situations in these cities so that he can then go and say, look, military, you need to go in and take care of this.
I need you to do this.
Yeah. Exactly. My ultimate question is going to be, are the generals going to hold the line of actually protecting the Constitution and the American people? Or will they do what Donald Trump wants them to do, no matter how unconstitutional or how criminal it will be? My hope is the former. Yeah. I really deeply, deeply hope it is the former. And from what I'm hearing, they didn't voice this, but the majority of the generals and the admirals and the military people that were in that audience were laughing inside at Hegseth, embarrassed about how this was the person who was our Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, and that this was the kind of leadership that they had to be under now. And so, but what you said is so important, because those are the threads that Donald Trump ultimately, I believe, wants to connect. And I think he wants to connect it before the upcoming midterm elections. So people need to be very aware. None of this is by accident. He sees the polls for the upcoming midterm elections.
That's right.
This is why he's doing all of the crazy, also unconstitutional reapportionment, redistricting. But it's not going to be enough. And he knows it's not going to be enough. And so he's going to try to do what he can to increase the chaos, inject the fear. And here's the thing, Jim, it is about the chaos. It is about the fear, because ultimately for him and this administration, it's about the silence. He wants to keep us silent.
Oh, so, no, there's no question.
I thank God for people like you and other reporters out there, other journalists who are telling it like it is, who are covering this stuff, other folks who are saying this is not the United States of America.
It's not. It's just not.
Exactly.
It's not. It's not the country that we grew up in. And what are we handing off to the next generation? How does it get worse than this? Mm-hmm. It's got to be put. You got to put a stop to it. And it seems to me, Maria, and there was a subscriber comment, a viewer comment earlier that said that Schumer should be making as a prerequisite as part of these budget negotiations that they end ICE raids to get out of this shutdown. And I wrote about this the other day. I absolutely believe that Democrats should be going for way more than Obamacare subsidies. They should be saying to Donald Trump, we'll reopen the government if you get ICE to heal. Mm-hmm. If you get those guys back in the goddamn vans and send them back to the ICE police station and tell them to cool the fuck off. Because it seems to me right now it's totally out of control. And I don't know how much worse this is going to get.
I know.
But it seems to me when you got kids and abuelas and people being traumatized, it is totally, totally nuts. And I don't know, what are your thoughts? Because you're in the party.
Yeah.
This is what, this is your nitty gritty here. Right. It seems to me there needs to be a marker laid here. You got to say more than just Obamacare subsidies. You got to say something about this immigration crackdown. It's totally nuts.
I mean, I would love that. And I do think that it has become necessary, because it's more than just about immigration, like we've just been talking about, right? Yeah. This is about the survival of our democracy. This is about the lives and livelihoods of American citizens in these neighborhoods. This is about a president who wants to divide this country and pit people against each other. He literally wants citizens against citizens, which is what we're seeing on the street right now. That video that Kristi Noem put out is disgusting. Because that is a video of U.S. agents, U.S. federal agents going after Americans in our neighborhoods, in our cities. That is not something that we ever thought would be possible in the United States of America. And so you're right. I think our elected officials do need to put a marker down. As you
Yeah.
know, Democrats have almost zero leverage because we don't control anything.
Yeah. No, I know.
But
They don't even run a hot dog stand in this
right,
town, as I
exactly.
said the
But they
other
should
day. Yeah.
try. They should try as much as they can. And so far, they've been holding the line, at least for these Obamacare subsidies. They should try to get as much as they can here, because I do think, again, the more that they sound the alarm about what is at stake, right?
Yep.
Obamacare subsidies, the healthcare crisis, the lives of millions of Americans if they're not going to be able to get healthcare, as well as the safety of Americans in their own neighborhoods, in their own beds, the safety
Right.
of their children, the sacrosanctity of our families and where we live and supposedly should feel safe day in and day out. That is disappearing.
Yeah.
That, I think, is a huge issue for Americans as we go into the 2024 elections.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, Maria, I knew you were texting me and I was about to text you. We were saying we got to talk about this ICE stuff because
yes, thank you. We were on the same wavelength.
We were on the same
my
wavelength.
Friend.
We were talking to one another before we were talking to one another. But
exactly,
no, I mean, this stuff, it really disappoints me that this is what we've become. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said Democrats don't have, much to talk about in terms of leverage these days. They can't really hold the line, I suppose, is their thinking. But it seems to me we're in this moment right now. We got to get to the negotiating table.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put ICE on the table.
Yeah, no,
I
think to a certain extent they have nothing else to lose.
Might as well.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
because they are now, Republicans need their votes.
They need their votes. That's right.
And if you see the polls, more people are blaming Republicans because it's their fault. They never invited Democrats to come to the negotiating table. It was actually Jeffries and Schumer that reached out to Trump and said, hey, maybe we should meet, right? And they never, in fact, Donald Trump said the words, we don't need Democrats. We don't need Democrats to do anything.
Well, he called them a gnat. He said it in front of the Navy yesterday. They're a gnat on his shoulder.
Exactly.
It's time for the gnat maybe to become a bit, maybe a pterodactyl or something here. I don't know.
Or to fly into the eye of whoever,
something. I don't know. You add your metaphor there. Maria, great to see you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for what you're doing. And I look forward to our next conversation, amigo.
Wonderful. Anytime, amiga. Thank you so much. All right. That's the wonderful Maria Cardona. Always enjoy our conversations. I want to go back and show that image again of the tear gas in the neighborhood in Chicago. And I just want to ask the question, what would you do if this was your neighborhood? What would you do? What would you think? What would you say to your mom, your dad, your loved ones when you got around the dinner table, or if you called them because maybe they live in another town or something like that? Look at that. The caption there, ICE tear gassing residential Brighton Park neighborhood in Chicago, October 4th. This is what we've become in America. We've become a place in America where it's now the battle is on. Donald Trump, he talked the other day about wanting to send the military to go to war against the enemy from within. The war, it's almost as though the war has already begun. He's going after people. He's going after neighborhoods. He's going after defenseless children, women, the elderly, elected officials. It's nonstop. And one of the things that the people in Illinois and Portland objected to was apparently Trump wanted to send in members of the Texas National Guard into other people's states. Sounds like a goddamn civil war. In what world would Republicans tolerate a situation where a Democratic president was sending in members of the National Guard from blue states into Texas? What would happen in Texas if President Obama or President Biden sent in members of the New York National Guard or the Illinois National Guard or the California National Guard, for Christ's sake, into Texas to occupy their cities, to occupy their communities, to set off tear gas in their neighborhoods? People would lose their shit, and rightfully so. And so when you see people losing their shit now, when you see an alderperson in Chicago saying, "Hey, where's your arrest warrant?" Of course people are pissed. Of course people are asking questions. When you have judges, federal judges appointed by Donald Trump saying that we are based on constitutional law, not martial law in this country, don't you think Donald Trump and Stephen Miller just might be a little bit over their skis? And Stephen Miller, the pendejo of the Trump administration, the chief pendejo of the Trump administration, that's asshole for folks who don't know the translation, is calling that insurrection? Are you kidding me? You don't get to call other people insurrectionists, Stephen Miller. Donald Trump doesn't get to call other people insurrectionists. They are the goddamn insurrectionists. And yes, they are back in power. And yes, they are throwing their weight around. But I'll be damned if the American people cannot raise their voices and say no, and say, hell no. We're not going to let our streets, we're not going to let our neighborhoods get turned into apocalypse now. We're not going to let our neighborhoods get turned into war zones where tear gas is going off. They wouldn't tolerate that in red states. Why are people tolerating it in blue states? They don't want to tolerate it because they don't want this to be their home. They don't want this to be their country. And so Donald Trump and his chief pendejo need to understand that people are pissed. People are angry. And they're going to speak their minds. They're going to say, enough with this craziness, enough with this madness, enough with the terrorizing of these communities, terrorizing of families, of children. It's madness, and it needs to stop. And I think Democrats, somebody was saying earlier, why are the Democrats going for crumbs? At least go for half the loaf. At least go for something. At least go for a slice. It's time to put the tactics, the brutality, the inhumanity of ICE on the table in these shutdown negotiation talks. It is time. It is time to stop this mutation of this country where it's okay to send in the militarized police force, the Putin-style secret police into neighborhoods to terrorize defenseless people. If you're going after undocumented people who've committed crimes, okay, where's your warrant? But turning neighborhoods into battle zones where tear gas is going off, they wouldn't tolerate that in Alabama. I can tell you what they would do in Alabama, Mississippi, and Texas, and Louisiana if this stuff was going on down in their communities. All hell would break loose. And so it's time to come back to reality. It's time to come back to sanity. And the Democrats are going to have to fight harder to get us there. In the meantime, still reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta. Have a good evening. Take care. Good night.